I never saw it coming. Not like this. I thought Lisa and I were good. I mean, we'd been together for 12 years, and yeah, there were some rough patches. What marriage doesn't have them? But everything felt solid, you know? The kids were doing well, work was stable, we had a routine. Maybe that's where I messed up, thinking everything was fine because it felt normal. Then one night, she just drops it on me. Totally out of nowhere. We're sitting at the kitchen table after the kids are in bed, and she says, all casual, like it's no big deal, "Tom, I think I need to explore relationships outside of our marriage. I've been thinking about it for a while." I freeze. Like, actually freeze. My mind goes blank. I can't even process what she's saying. Is she joking? Is this some weird therapy session talk? But no. She's dead serious. I mean, she says it like it's some sort of personal journey she needs to go on. I'm sitting there trying to keep it together, but it feels like the floor just fell out from under me. I don't even know how to respond. She just sits there watching me, like she's waiting for me to be okay with it. I ask, Are you serious right now? And she nods. She says, yeah, it's not about you, Tom. I still care about you. I need to find myself. It's something I have to do for me. I feel like I'm drowning. I need to find myself? What the hell does that even mean? She says it's all part of this self-discovery thing, like she's reading some book about self-empowerment and it's all supposed to make sense. But it doesn't make any sense to me. I just keep staring at her, trying to understand how the woman I've been with for over a decade can just drop a bomb like this. Are you seeing someone? I ask, my voice cracking. It's the only thing that makes sense to ask. She laughs. No, nothing like that. I'm not cheating, Tom. I'm just exploring. She says it like it's no big deal, like it's something everyone does at some point. But it feels like a punch to the gut. I don't know what to say after that. I don't even know what I'm supposed to feel. But I know I don't feel right. I'm not angry yet, more like confused and hurt. And the worst part? She doesn't seem sorry at all. She's just sitting there, giving me this look like I should understand. Like I'm the one with the problem. The rest of the night is a blur. I don't remember what we said after that. I just know I ended up going to bed, not sleeping, and the next morning, I woke up with a sick feeling in my stomach. I tried to act normal, but I couldn't shake the idea that something had shifted. Something had broken, and I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning. I wish I could say that after that night, things got better. But honestly, it only got worse. For the next couple of days, I kept trying to act like everything was normal, but I could feel the distance between Lisa and me growing wider by the hour. Every time I tried to talk to her, she'd brush me off. I'd ask her what she meant by exploring relationships, and she'd act all defensive, like I was the one who didn't get it. She kept repeating that it wasn't about me, that she wasn't unhappy with our marriage, but there was this part of her that needed something more. Something outside of what we had. And the more she said it, the more it sounded like a lie. She was speaking this strange language of self-empowerment, but all I heard was, I'm checking out. It was like she was shutting me out of her world completely. I started noticing little things. Texts on her phone she wouldn't let me see, late nights when she'd say she was out with friends, and that weird, distant tone in her voice. The conversations we used to have about nothing and everything? Gone. After 3 days of this, I lost it. I mean, really lost it. I wasn't angry at first, just numb, like I didn't know what the hell to do. But then it hit me, she was making excuses. She was justifying whatever was going on behind my back, and I was sitting here, letting her spin this twisted narrative about personal growth. It wasn't about growth. It was about something else. That night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't just sit there and let her disrespect me like this. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and just left. I didn't even say goodbye to the kids. I couldn't. The look in her eyes when I walked out the door, like she was relieved I was gone, stuck with me. I went to a buddy's place, someone I hadn't really talked to much since high school. We weren't close, but at that point, I needed someone to just be there. We had a couple of beers, and I told him what happened. He listened, didn't judge. But all he could say was, man, that's brutal. You don't deserve that. That night, I stayed up thinking about everything. How the hell did we get here? Where did I go wrong? How did I miss this? I didn't even want to go home. I had no idea what I was going to say to Lisa when I did. My mind was spinning. I kept thinking about those texts, her late nights. Was she seeing someone? Was she already seeing someone? And if she was, who the hell was it? Some other guy, or was it more than that? I was trying to talk myself down, like, maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. But the gut feeling? That wasn't something you could shake off. I knew I needed answers. And then that's when it hit me, I'm gonna find out the truth. Every time she lied to me, I'd have to swallow it and pretend everything was fine. But not anymore. I had to know what was really going on. The next day, I didn't even bother going home. I went to see my sister, Amanda, who's a psychologist. She's been a huge support through the years, always the rational one. But when I told her what Lisa said, Amanda looked like she was trying to process the words, but it didn't take long for her to realize how messed up it all sounded. Tom, she said, after a long pause, there's something more going on here. This isn't about self-discovery. I've known Lisa for years. This is manipulation. I could see the concern in her eyes. She was right, but at the time, I wasn't ready to admit it. What do you mean? I asked, my voice cracking. I mean, Amanda went on, this doesn't add up. If she wanted a personal journey, there are healthier ways to go about it. I think she's hiding something. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down I knew. And that's when I decided. No more letting Lisa run the show. It was time to take control. I was going to find out everything. After talking to Amanda, I started to get this cold, ugly feeling in my gut, like I was living in a house of lies. I couldn't shake it off. It didn't take a psychologist to see the holes in Lisa's story. Something was off. I spent the next few days digging. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. I had to know what was really going on behind my back. I'm not an amateur when it comes to tech. My job requires me to know how to look things up, find things people try to hide. So, I put those skills to work. First, I went through her phone. She always kept it face down, like she had something to hide, but now I knew I had to look. I found a password, but it wasn't anything fancy. I knew it, and I cracked it in under 5 minutes. As soon as I opened her messages, I froze. There were texts, lots of them, and they weren't just innocent chats with friends. There were multiple threads with a guy I didn't recognize. He was sending her flowers, pictures, and worst of all, calling her babe and talking about meeting up. I dug deeper. Then I found a thread with another name. Same thing. Messages about sneaking around, sharing intimate details that made my stomach churn. One message even mentioned a hotel. It was all right there. Proof that Lisa had been lying. She'd been seeing other people for months. But it wasn't just one guy. There were more. And some of them were big names. One of the names on her phone was a politician. A local one, but still, a guy who had power influence. And another? A priest from our church. I couldn't believe it at first, but the texts didn't lie. It was all there, hidden under layers of lies and manipulation. I could feel my hands shaking as I looked at everything. I had so many questions. Why? Why the hell did she think she could get away with this? And why with them? But more importantly, what the hell was I going to do about it? I knew this couldn't go on. I couldn't just let her play me like a fool. She needed to face the consequences. I wasn't sure how I was going to confront her yet, but one thing was clear, I wasn't just going to let it slide. She wanted to explore? Fine. But she was going to regret it. And I was going to make sure of that. The game had changed. I spent the next couple of days trying to calm down, but every time I thought about what I'd found, my blood started boiling again. I had the proof. I didn't need to be sure anymore. Lisa had crossed the line. So, I set up the confrontation. I wasn't going to let her play this out for weeks or months like she probably hoped. I needed to see her reaction, to hear the lies spill out of her mouth one more time. I called her and told her we needed to talk. She was way too calm on the phone, like she wasn't even fazed by what I might say. Maybe she thought I didn't know. But I was done playing nice. When I walked into the house that evening, the air felt thick with tension. Lisa was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, acting like nothing was wrong. I sat down across from her and didn't say a word at first. I just pulled out my phone and showed her the messages. Her face went white when she saw them. She tried to hide the panic, but it was there, her eyes darting around, the slight tremble in her hand as she set the phone down. Tom, I can explain, she stammered. It's not what it looks like. You don't understand. I cut her off. Don't lie to me, Lisa. Don't sit here and try to spin this into something else. I know everything. The texts, the guys, the hotel rooms. And let's not even get into the priest or the politician. You really thought I wouldn't find out? She was speechless for a moment, her mouth opening and closing like she was trying to find the right words, but there were none. Eventually, she sighed, her shoulders slumping. I wasn't trying to hurt you, Tom. I just needed something more than what we had. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Something more? You're telling me you needed multiple affairs to feel fulfilled? How long has this been going on, Lisa? A year? 2. She didn't answer at first, but I could see her eyes shifting, like she was trying to figure out how much I knew. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand, she whispered. But I was lonely, Tom. I felt like you didn't even notice me anymore. The excuses kept pouring out. She wasn't getting enough attention. She was growing as a person. She was finding herself, all the same crap she said before, only now, it was obvious she was justifying the affair as some kind of therapy session for her own selfishness. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't care. She had betrayed me in ways I never imagined. I was done with the sob stories. I'm done, Lisa, I said, standing up. You can find yourself all you want, but you won't be doing it here. And don't bother asking for a second chance, because you already threw that away. Her eyes welled up, and she reached out like she wanted to hold my arm, but I pulled away. I wasn't giving her that satisfaction. I don't want to be with you anymore, I said. I don't know who you are anymore. You've shown me exactly who you are, and I don't like it. I walked out of the house that night, leaving her standing there, speechless. There was no big argument. No shouting match. I didn't need to. The truth was enough. As I drove away, part of me was relieved. The truth was out, and the weight of all the lies had finally been lifted off my chest. But the other part of me? That part was still furious. I couldn't believe how much damage she'd done. And I wasn't going to let her walk away from this without consequences. The real plan was just starting to take shape. After the confrontation, I went back to my buddy's place for a couple of nights, just to clear my head. I knew the next steps weren't going to be easy, but I couldn't sit around doing nothing. Lisa had crossed the line, and it was time to take back control. I wasn't just angry, I was embarrassed, humiliated. All these years I'd trusted her, and she'd been playing me for a fool. I needed to do something that would make her feel this. I wasn't just going to let her go on living her life while I carried around the shame of what she did. I spent the next day calling in some favors. I reached out to a few friends in the local media. One of them worked in a position where they could access some of the more private details of public figures. They didn't ask too many questions when I mentioned the politician involved. All I had to say was that I had proof of something ugly going on. That got their attention. Then, there was the priest. I wasn't religious, but I knew how this would hit his reputation if it got out. I wasn't out for revenge on the whole world, but these people needed to face the consequences of their actions, and I had the means to make that happen. I wasn't planning on being reckless, but I also wasn't going to be subtle. Lisa had exposed herself, and now the people she'd been involved with would be exposed too. After a few phone calls, I had what I needed: names, times, dates. Everything pointed back to her. I wasn't going to ruin her life, but I was sure as hell going to make her regret it. The politician's name was tied to the affair with Lisa in such a way that if the press got a hold of it, it would be a major scandal. And the priest? His involvement was even more damning. I spent the next couple of days putting everything together. I wasn't going to do anything petty. I wasn't that guy. But I was going to let everyone involved feel the weight of what they'd done. Lisa needed to know that what she did wasn't just about a personal journey. It was betrayal. And I was going to make sure she saw the full price of it. The stage was set. It was time for her, and her lovers, to face the consequences. I didn't waste any time. The pieces were in place, and I was ready to make my move. I'd been calm, collected through the whole process, but now I was ready for the chaos. I started with the politician. I sent an anonymous tip to a local reporter I knew. A short, simple email with just enough information to spark their interest. Check out the affair between State Republic, J. Matthews and Lisa Mitchell. It's been going on for months, and there's a paper trail to prove it. I attached a few key screenshots from Lisa's phone, enough to make them dig deeper. I didn't care about the specifics of how the reporter followed up. That wasn't my problem. I just wanted the public humiliation to hit him where it hurt. If this went public, his career would be over. I could already imagine the scandal. Politician caught in a scandalous affair with a married woman, accusations of using his power to influence her. That would be enough to destroy him. I didn't even feel bad. He had it coming. Next, I reached out to a few members of our church congregation. I wasn't the kind of person to spread gossip, but when it came to the priest, I didn't hesitate. I got in touch with one of the church elders, someone I knew well enough to trust with the details. I told them bluntly what I had found out. The priest had been having an affair with Lisa for months, and I had evidence. The truth was a powerful thing, and this priest's reputation? It was about to be shattered. The elder called me back later that afternoon, his voice shaking with disbelief. I didn't care about his reaction. I only cared about the fallout. The priest was a trusted member of the community, and once word got out, he'd be just as ruined as the politician. As for Lisa, I didn't tell her anything about what I was doing. I didn't need to. She didn't deserve to know when the storm was coming. She was still trying to play the role of the wronged wife, but now she was going to feel the weight of her own actions. A couple of days later, the first news hit. The politician was in the spotlight for the affair. The report was all over social media by noon, and the public was in a frenzy. He was forced to step down from his position, and there were calls for an investigation into his conduct. I didn't know if they'd ever trace it back to me, but I didn't care. The damage was done. The priest didn't take long either. The church had to release a statement, acknowledging the affair. I could hear the shock in the elder's voice when he called me to confirm it. "I can't believe it," he said. "This is going to tear the church apart." Good. It should. Lisa had been sleeping with men who were supposed to be trusted figures in our community, people who had positions of power. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, and neither were they. They had made their choices, and now they were facing the consequences. But Lisa? She still hadn't realized the full weight of what was coming. She'd gotten away with so much for so long, and I wasn't going to let her off easy. It didn't take long for Lisa to realize things were starting to crumble. The phone calls started. The looks in public. Whispers behind her back. She tried to hold it together, but I could see her unraveling little by little. She hadn't expected this. She thought she could just slip out of our marriage, explore whatever she wanted, and live with no consequences. But the truth had a funny way of catching up with people. I got a text from her one morning. Simple. "We need to talk." I'd been waiting for this. She was finally starting to get it. But I wasn't ready to just let her have a calm conversation. Not after everything. I agreed to meet her at the park near the house, a neutral spot. When I saw her walking toward me, she looked different. Not the confident, self-assured woman who walked out of our house a week ago, but a broken version of the person I used to know. Her face was pale, and she had this nervous energy about her. "I can't believe you did this," she started, her voice trembling, as soon as we sat down. "You've ruined my life, Tom. You had to go and drag everything out in the open. You're punishing me for wanting something more." I was taken aback for a second, not because I felt bad, but because she was still playing the victim. It was like she'd learned nothing. "You ruined your own life, Lisa," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You chose to betray me. You chose to humiliate not just me, but everyone around us. You thought you could have your cake and eat it too, but now you're seeing what happens when people face the consequences of their actions." She was silent for a long moment, just staring at me. Then she let out a shaky breath. "I never meant for things to get this far," she whispered. "It was just supposed to be fun. I thought I could handle it, that it wouldn't hurt anyone." Fun? I couldn't believe she was still making excuses. "You thought you could handle it? You thought you could sleep with multiple men, important men, and nothing would happen? You really thought you could pull off that kind of deception without consequences?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't think you'd find out. I thought it would just be a phase. You were always so focused on work, Tom." I felt invisible. I didn't feel wanted anymore. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but another part, one that had been quietly building up, was telling me she had zero right to say any of that. Her actions weren't about me ignoring her. They were about her own selfish choices. I don't care about your excuses, Lisa. You don't get to play the victim here. You chose this. You betrayed me, you betrayed our kids, and now you're going to deal with the fallout. I'm done. She opened her mouth, probably to say more, but I couldn't sit there listening to her spin her sob story anymore. I stood up, and before I turned to walk away, I looked her in the eyes and said, "You don't get to play innocent. Not anymore." I walked away from that park knowing that, for the first time in a long time, I was finally free. The truth was out. And as much as it had hurt, as much as I still felt like I was carrying the weight of the betrayal, there was a sense of relief. The days after that meeting felt surreal. I wasn't expecting Lisa to change overnight. She was still in damage control mode, but there was something different in the air now. She knew she was losing everything. The fallout didn't just stop at the politicians and the priest. Lisa's friends started pulling away too, and she wasn't handling it well. People who once supported her started whispering, giving her the cold shoulder. The community wasn't stupid, and the whispers about the affairs had spread far beyond what I could have anticipated. It was a weird mix of satisfaction and discomfort. Part of me was glad she was finally facing the consequences. But watching her struggle, her once calm demeanor breaking down, her desperate attempts to win back sympathy, it was hard to ignore. She sent me text after text, voicemail after voicemail, each one getting more frantic. But I didn't respond. She tried to turn on the waterworks, too. "You were right, Tom," she'd say, voice quivering. "I messed up. I know I've hurt you. I'll do anything to make it right." But it wasn't enough. She didn't have the moral high ground anymore. She didn't get to rewrite her mistakes. Her lies were unraveling, and every time she tried to defend herself, she dug the hole deeper. I wasn't going to buy into her apologies anymore. The damage was done. And besides, I had bigger things to think about. The kids were the hardest part. I'd been so focused on making sure Lisa felt the weight of what she'd done, but I had to remember, my primary responsibility was to them. I didn't want them caught in the crossfire of this mess, but it wasn't like I could hide what had happened. The local gossip machine worked fast. I sat down with my son, Jake, and daughter, Sophie, one evening. I didn't sugarcoat it. "Mom made some bad choices," I told them. "But I want you both to know this isn't your fault. We're going to be okay. I'm here for you." Jake, who was 10, didn't say much. He just nodded, looking more confused than anything. Sophie, on the other hand, was a little older. She was 13, and she got it more than I realized. "Is she coming back?" Sophie asked, her voice shaky. "I don't know," I said, swallowing hard. "But no matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere. I'll always be here for you." It killed me to see them hurt. They didn't deserve any of this. But they were old enough to understand that some things couldn't be fixed. Lisa had chosen her path, and it wasn't one that was going to end well. And then, the real surprise came. The lawyer's letter. I was sitting at home, going over the divorce papers when the mail came. There was a thick envelope from Lisa's lawyer. I wasn't surprised. It was only a matter of time before she'd try to take the high road and fight me for custody, or alimony, or whatever else she could get. But when I opened it, the contents were not what I expected. Lisa had signed the divorce papers already. She was agreeing to everything I asked for: full custody of the kids, no alimony, and no claim to the house. Part of me felt a weird relief, like she finally realized the severity of what she'd done. But another part of me wondered if it was a way for her to save face. Maybe she didn't want to fight in front of the whole town, knowing her reputation was already in tatters. Either way, I wasn't going to argue. The divorce was going through. And it wasn't because I wanted her back, it was because I couldn't keep living this lie. I needed to move on. The hardest part was over. The rest? It was just a matter of picking up the pieces and figuring out what came next for me and the kids. Lisa could deal with her own mess. She'd made it. Now, she could live in it. The next few weeks felt like a blur. Divorce paperwork. Custody arrangements. Figuring out how to adjust to life without Lisa in the house. The kids and I started finding a new routine, one without her constant presence. Some days, it was harder than others. Seeing the empty space at the dinner table, hearing the silence after school when they asked where Mom was. It wasn't easy. But there was something freeing about it, too. The tension that had been hanging over us for so long was gone. The air felt cleaner. I wasn't walking on eggshells anymore, wondering if Lisa was about to do something else to break me. I spent more time with the kids, trying to make up for the lost moments. I took them out for pizza, played board games at night, and we watched movies together. The first time I heard Jake laugh again, I felt this weight lift off my chest. Maybe the damage was done, but I could still make sure they knew they were loved. As for Lisa, she kept trying to contact me. She sent more texts, apologies, pleas to talk or explain things. But I didn't respond. Not once. I knew what she was doing. She was trying to regain control of the narrative, trying to act like the victim again. But she wasn't the victim. She made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. One day, about a month after the divorce was finalized, I got a message from Amanda, my sister. "Tom, have you seen what's going on with Lisa?" I had no idea what she meant, so I asked her to explain. Apparently, Lisa had been trying to make herself look like the innocent party to everyone. She had been telling people, friends, family, that I was the one who'd pushed her away and didn't support her when she needed it most. She had gone to her therapist, and they were spinning some tale about how emotional neglect for me drove her into the arms of other men. I felt my stomach tighten. This was exactly what I'd feared. Lisa couldn't let the story end with her facing the consequences. She had to twist it, shift the blame, and make herself look like the wronged party. It was all part of her game. I didn't bite. I didn't need to. Everyone who mattered to me already knew the truth. I knew the kind of person Lisa had become, and no amount of spinning was going to change that. But I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story. I called up a few close friends, people who knew me, people who had seen the real picture, and I told them everything. The affairs, the lies, the betrayal. And I didn't sugarcoat anything. I didn't need to. The truth stood on its own. What hit hardest, though, was when I found out what had happened to the priest. The church had officially defrocked him. His affair with Lisa had become public knowledge, and the church had no choice but to take action. I didn't take pleasure in that. I didn't want to ruin anyone's life. But the fact that he'd used his position to betray trust? It was poetic justice, in a way. As for the politician, I heard he was under investigation for misconduct. People had lost faith in him. His career was effectively over, and I couldn't help but feel some satisfaction that his actions had consequences too. But honestly, the biggest satisfaction I got came from seeing Lisa's true face slowly unravel. She had this perfect image of herself she wanted everyone to believe, but people were starting to see through it. The guilt she had been trying so hard to suppress was beginning to surface, and I could see it when I ran into her at a store or at the kids' school events. She'd put on this mask of confidence, but it never held up. I didn't have to say anything. The whispers followed her everywhere. I still remember the first time I ran into her at the grocery store after all the fallout. She looked up, our eyes met, and for a brief second, I saw the guilt in her eyes before she quickly turned away. I just stared at her. I didn't need to say a word. She knew I knew. And she knew that, deep down, she'd lost. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. What she'd done wasn't about me. It was about her. But it didn't matter now. I was done. The kids were done. Lisa's life was falling apart, and that wasn't my problem anymore. My only focus was on rebuilding mine, and rebuilding my relationship with my kids, making sure they knew that no matter what, they had me. That was my revenge. Letting her unravel in front of everyone while I stayed strong. While I moved on. It's strange, really. You go through something like this, betrayal, heartbreak, anger, and you think you'll never feel like yourself again. But then, little by little, you start to piece things back together. The kids and I settled into a new rhythm. It wasn't easy at first, but we found our way. I made sure they felt secure, even if things were chaotic on the outside. We talked more. We laughed more. Jake even started cracking jokes again, something I hadn't heard in months. Sophie was more mature about it, but I could tell she was struggling with her own emotions. We went to therapy together a few times, just to make sure they had a safe space to talk about everything. As for Lisa, I didn't think about her much. She tried to reach out a few more times, but I ignored it. Every time I saw her name pop up on my phone, I just hit ignore. I didn't need her apology anymore. I didn't need any more lies. But a few weeks later, I ran into her at a school function. I could see how different she was. She was standing by herself, talking to a few of the other parents, but there was this awkwardness about her. Like she knew people were watching her, waiting for her to mess up. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. Her guilt was written all over her face. She looked at me a couple of times, but I just kept my focus on the kids. They were all that mattered now. I could tell she was still playing the victim to anyone who'd listen. She tried to make it seem like she was the one who got the raw end of the deal, but people weren't buying it. Word had gotten out about her affairs, about the church and the politician, and it wasn't a good look. At one point, she tried to approach me. She said, "Tom, can we just talk? I need to apologize for everything." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just nothing. "You already had your chance," I said. "It's over." She stood there, staring at me like she was waiting for me to cave in or show some emotion. But I didn't. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I walked away from that moment feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Life wasn't perfect. It wasn't even close. But it was mine now. The kids were doing well, and I was starting to find joy in the little things again. Lisa's mess was hers to deal with. As for me, I was building something better. And that was the best revenge of all. I hadn't realized how much weight I was carrying until it was gone. It wasn't just the anger that had been eating at me for so long, it was the constant uncertainty. The wondering if I could ever trust again, if I'd ever be whole after what Lisa had done. But with each passing day, I felt myself getting stronger. I started going out again, simple things at first. Dinner with friends. A drink after work. Nothing major. But it felt good. I hadn't realized how isolated I'd become during the marriage, caught up in Lisa's drama and lies. I'd let my world shrink to just the two of us. As the weeks passed, I met someone. Her name was Sarah. She wasn't anything like Lisa, no games, no manipulation. Just someone who had her own life together, who respected mine. We took things slow, but it was like a breath of fresh air. The first time I realized I was actually starting to move on was when I saw Lisa at a mutual friends gathering. She was alone, as usual, and there was no drama this time. No confrontation. No guilt tripping. She didn't even approach me. It was like we were strangers. And I felt fine. I didn't have to carry her mess anymore. I didn't have to defend myself, or explain my side. I'd done that in my own way, and now I could just live. When the divorce finally became official, I didn't feel relief in the way I thought I would. It wasn't about winning or losing, it was about being free. I'd taken back my life, and there was nothing more she could take from me. The hardest part was getting used to being a single dad. I had to adjust to the silence in the house, the absence of a woman's voice around. But the kids were adjusting too, and that gave me strength. We had more time together than ever before. The tension was gone, and we had more room to heal. One evening, as I tucked Jake into bed, he looked up at me and said, "Dad, I think things are getting better." That hit me harder than anything. Because, for the first time in a long time, I could see it too. It was all moving in the right direction. I didn't need revenge anymore. It wasn't about proving anything to Lisa or anyone else. It was about proving to myself that I was strong enough to rebuild. And I had. Lisa was out of my life. The people she hurt had moved on, and so had I. The past was gone, and I was finally free. It's been a few months since everything settled, and things are good. Not perfect, but good. I've learned a lot through all of this, about myself, about what I'm capable of, and what really matters in life. The kids are thriving. Jake's doing great at school, and Sophie's been more open with me than ever. It feels like we're really starting to heal. There are still moments when I catch myself thinking about the past, about the betrayal, and how completely blindsided I was by Lisa's actions. But those thoughts don't hold the same weight anymore. They don't control me. I've gotten closer with my sister, Amanda, too. She's been a rock through all of this, always checking in, always making sure I was okay. I don't think I could have gotten through the worst of it without her support. She told me once that sometimes, you don't realize how much strength you have until it's tested. And she was right. I never thought I could come out of something like this feeling stronger, but here I am. And then there's Sarah. I'm not rushing into anything, but things are good. Real good. She's patient, kind, and doesn't have any of the baggage I was dealing with before. It's refreshing, really. We don't have to talk about the past every time we're together. We just enjoy each other's company. I'm not ready to throw myself fully into another relationship just yet, but Sarah makes me feel like it's possible. She makes me feel like I can trust again, one step at a time. I still have moments where I think about Lisa, especially when I see her trying to pick up the pieces of her own life. She's still spinning that same victim narrative, trying to convince people she was the one who got hurt. But I don't care anymore. Her life, her choices. She's dealing with her own mess now, and it's not my problem. The last time I saw her, I was at a parent-teacher meeting, and she was there. She looked at me, but this time, there was no tension, no anger. Just nothing. It was almost like we were strangers. And you know what? That was the moment I realized, I'm done. She's done. I'm not holding on to this pain anymore. I've moved on, and I'm better for it. I'm not perfect, and I don't have all the answers. But I know this, my life is mine again. The anger, the betrayal, the hurt, they're all in the past now. I'm focused on today, on the kids, on building something better. And for the first time in a long time, I can honestly say I'm looking forward to tomorrow. It's hard to believe how much has changed. A few months ago, I was drowning in anger and confusion. But now, little by little, I've started rebuilding. It hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it. The kids are doing well. Jake's into sports now, he picked up soccer on his own, and Sophie's been opening up more. She's still a bit guarded, but we've had more real conversations than I ever expected. I've been making an effort to be more present with them, and I think it's paying off. The kids can see the change, and that's what matters most to me. I've reconnected with my friends too. I'd let those relationships slip when I was married, but now we're getting back to doing the things we used to, hanging out on weekends, catching up over drinks, just being in each other's lives again. It feels like I'm getting back to who I was before all the drama. And then there's Sarah. We've been seeing each other casually. I'm not rushing anything, but it feels good. She's patient, and there's no pressure to make anything work. I'm not trying to fill the void that Lisa left behind. I'm just enjoying spending time with someone who sees me for who I am now, not who I was. A few weeks ago, I took the kids on a weekend trip to the beach. It was simple, just a couple of days away from everything. No distractions. We spent the whole day in the sand, playing, talking, laughing. It was the first time in months I truly felt peaceful. No anger. No bitterness. Just us, in our own little world. That trip was a turning point for me. I realized that everything I went through wasn't for nothing. It hurt, but it got me here, stronger, more present, more in control. I'm not the same person I was when Lisa left, and I'm proud of that. I ran into Lisa at a school event a couple of weeks ago. I could see she was still struggling to keep up appearances, but I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel pity. I just felt done. We exchanged a few words, but it didn't matter. I'm not holding on to her anymore. I've moved on. At the end of the day, that's what I've learned. My life is mine again. The anger, the resentment, the pain, it's all in the past. I'm focusing on my kids, my future, and building something better. I've found peace in moving forward, and that's the best revenge of all. It's been a while since I've felt like I was truly back. Not just going through the motions, but living my life on my terms. There's been a lot of healing, more than I thought was possible when this whole thing started. The kids are still adjusting, but we're in a good place. There are still moments when Sophie gets a little quiet, and I can tell she's carrying something heavy. But she's been talking more, and she's more willing to let me in. Jake? He's thriving. He's got that energy again, the kind that lights up a room. I catch him laughing about stuff I never thought he'd find funny, and I can't help but smile. We're getting back to normal. Maybe even better than normal. I've been taking better care of myself, too. It's funny how much I'd neglected my own well-being when I was so caught up in Lisa's world. Now, I make time for things I enjoy. I've been running more, picking up hobbies I'd forgotten about, and even went back to the gym. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about feeling like myself again, strong, confident, and free. Then there's Sarah. Things are still easy between us. We've spent a lot of time just getting to know each other without any pressure. We don't talk about the past much, her past or mine, but there's a quiet understanding between us. She knows where I've been, and I know where she's been. There's no rush. For the first time, I'm not trying to fill a void or chase something I lost. I'm just enjoying being with someone who makes me laugh, who's there when I need her. It's simple, and I think that's what I needed the most right now. I don't think about Lisa as much anymore. I don't wake up with that gnawing feeling of betrayal. She's still out there, doing whatever it is she's doing, but I've learned that I don't need to know. I don't need to keep track of her life to feel better about my own. She doesn't have a hold on me anymore. I've taken back my peace, and I'm not willing to give it up. A few weeks ago, I took the kids on another trip, just a short weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods. There was no agenda, no expectations. We just got away, spent time together, and relaxed. It was one of those moments where everything just felt right. I looked at my kids and realized that despite everything, we were going to be okay. We had each other. Running into Lisa every once in a while still stings a little, but it's no longer a gut punch. I saw her at a parent meeting the other day. She was talking to some other parents, but when our eyes met, I felt nothing. No rage. No sadness. Just indifference. It was a strange kind of freedom to realize that I had completely let go of her. I think what I've learned most from all of this is that forgiveness doesn't mean letting people off the hook. It's not about absolving anyone of their wrongs. It's about you, letting go of the anger and resentment that weighs you down. For a long time, I thought revenge would be the thing that gave me peace, but in the end, it was just about moving on. And that's where I am now. I'm not perfect. I still have moments when I think about the past and wonder what went wrong. But I'm living my life again. I'm building something new. The road to healing wasn't easy, but it's been worth it. I'm stronger than I was. I'm more confident in who I am. And most importantly, I'm ready for whatever comes next. It's crazy how much life can change in just a few months. When this all started, I never thought I'd get to a place where I'd feel whole again. But here I am, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm finally living on my own terms. The kids are doing great. Jake's confidence is back, and he's been getting into more activities. Sophie is opening up more, and it's been a relief to see her so much more at ease. We've all settled into a new rhythm, one where we're not tiptoeing around the chaos Lisa left behind. There's peace now. And that's all I really wanted for them. As for me, I've been taking time for myself, doing things I enjoy, working on my health, getting back to who I used to be before everything fell apart. I'm learning to trust myself again, and that's been the most important thing. I don't need to rush anything or look for validation anymore. I'm happy with where I'm at. Sarah and I are still seeing each other, slowly. We're not rushing into anything. It feels easy with her, like we're both just letting things happen, no pressure. She's understanding and kind, and we've been spending time just enjoying each other's company. But more than that, I've realized I'm not trying to fill a hole left by Lisa. I'm just moving forward, and whatever happens with Sarah happens. I still see Lisa occasionally. She's always polite, but we don't talk much. I can see she's still struggling to hold things together, and honestly, I don't care. It's her life now, not mine. I don't need closure or answers anymore. I found my own peace. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not holding on to the past. The worst of it is behind me, and I'm looking ahead. There's a new chapter waiting, and I'm ready for it. My kids and I are stronger than ever, and whatever the future brings, I know we'll face it together.